Well, we are continuing our sermon series on the minor prophets called Who Are These Guys? And today we look at the book of Habakkuk. And you've probably noticed as we've gone through all of these minor prophets that a lot of times I keep saying we really don't know much about this prophet. Well, today we kind of take that to the max because we virtually know nothing about Habakkuk. We really don't even know how to pronounce his name. We don't know if it's pronounced Habakkuk or Habakkuk. Or maybe it's not even pronounced either one of those things. We don't really know. I remember I was in seminary. I asked my professor, what's the right way you pronounce this name? And he said, we really don't know. We don't know how to pronounce that. In fact, we don't even know if it was his real name. Some think it may have been a nickname, that it comes from an Akkadian word, Habakkuk, which is the name of a plant. Now, why the prophet would have had a nickname that comes from the name of a plant, I don't know. But, you know, if you're reading the Bible and you're having trouble struggling with these names, just remember that a lot of these names, we don't know how to pronounce them anyway. So just say them however it works for you and it'll be fine. So anyway, Habakkuk, or Habakkuk, or whoever he is, he delivered his message around 700 BC. That's what we think anyway. Now its form is different from the other minor prophets that we've looked at because it's not a message that's delivered to a certain group. Instead, it's a conversation. It's a conversation between Habakkuk and God. And we read a little of that conversation in our Bible reading for today. Now, the prophet starts off this conversation with a question. And it's a question, really, that people have struggled with for thousands of years. Really, it's a question we've struggled with since people became people. Habakkuk looks at the world. He sees all kinds of things going wrong. He says, destruction and violence are before me. There is strife and conflict abounds. The law is paralyzed, and justice never prevails. The wicked hem in the righteous, so that justice is perverted. And then he asks the question. Again, it's the same question most of us have asked one time or another. Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? Your eyes are too pure to look on evil. You cannot tolerate wrongdoing. Why then do you tolerate the treacherous? Why are you silent while the wicked swallow up those more righteous than themselves? And almost all of us have asked those similar questions. The worse things get, the more we ask them. Sometimes we ask them in a world context. Why are Christians being persecuted? Why is there so much poverty in the world? Sometimes we ask them in a national context. Why are there things like school shootings and other violence? Why is there so much family breakup and so many social problems? Sometimes we ask them in a local context. Why are we in a drought? Why is there so much crime? Sometimes we ask them in a very personal context. Why cannot I not find a job? How am I going to pay my bills? Will I ever find somebody to love me? Those are not all the same questions Habakkuk asked, of course. I'm not trying to say they are, but they are similar, I think, in that they all deal with situations that we think are not right, that are not the way they're supposed to be. They deal with situations where we don't think things should be the way they are. We don't understand why things are the way they are. We don't feel like we can do anything to change it. So we cry out to God. We say, God, you see the situation here. You cannot possibly like it. You cannot possibly approve of what's going on. So why don't you do something about it? And these are natural questions to ask. I want to emphasize there's absolutely nothing wrong with asking those questions. In a way, they show our faith. Because if our faith was weak, we'd give up on God when stuff like that happens. Instead, by asking these questions, what we're doing really is running toward God. We're not running away. We're running toward God. We're saying, God, I know you're there. I know you're all-powerful. I know you're good. I know you could do something about this. But it doesn't seem like you are. Why not? I still believe in you. I just don't understand. And that's the situation that Habakkuk was in. He did not lose his faith. He says, Lord, are you not from everlasting? My God, my Holy One, you will never die. Habakkuk never doubts God is still there. And in fact, Habakkuk's faith is stronger than that. He not only has faith that God is there, he fully expects that God's going to give him an answer. He says, I will stand at my watch and station myself on the ramparts. I will look to see what he will say to me. Habakkuk expects God to give him some sort of answer. In fact, God does give him an answer. Well, God kind of gives him an answer. What God says is, the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come. In other words, God says, things are going to be okay. I am going to act. It's just not time yet. The time will come. Wait for it. Be patient. It will come. I will take care of everything when the time is right. And that answer satisfies Habakkuk. Does it satisfy you? It's hard. It's hard to find that answer satisfying, and it's understandable why it's so hard. It's not just because we tend to be impatient people, although that's part of it. But it's also because we see people who are hurting right now. We see all kinds of people who are suffering right now. Sometimes it's people who are very close to us who are suffering. In fact, sometimes it's us, ourselves, who are suffering and in pain. And when we're hurting, when we're suffering, when people who are important to us are hurting, are suffering, it's pretty hard to be patient. It's pretty hard to hear God say, wait. Pretty hard to hear God say, oh, don't worry, I'll take care of it eventually, when the time is right. We think right now is when the time is right. We think, I don't want to hear about how things are going to be all perfect in some great glorious day that I may never live to see. I want God to take some action right now. But so often, that's not how it works. So often, God does not take action right now. Sometimes God does. I've had prayers answered in a very short period of time. Maybe you have too. And it's really cool when that happens. It's an awesome feeling. When we pray and it seems like immediately our prayer is answered, that's incredible. It can really strengthen our faith when that happens. But so often, God says to us what God said to Habakkuk. God says, I am going to do something, but I'm waiting for the appointed time. God says, wait for it. It will surely come. So how do we handle that? Sometimes not very well, of course. But I think one good way to handle it is to do what Habakkuk did. You and I need to stand watch. We need to look to see what God will say to us. We need to look and see what God's going to do and what God's going to say. And I think that's really important. Because sometimes, God's answer does not come all at once. Sometimes God's answer comes just a little bit at a time. It comes in various times and in various ways. And if we're not standing watch, if we're not looking for God's answer, we might miss it. We might not see God's answer. We'll think God is not answering our prayer when in fact God did give us an answer, but we just were not looking for it. And we missed it. I've been saying for a couple of years now that I believe God is doing something special here in the Wheatland Parish, and I still believe that. And I still don't know exactly what it is, but I see signs of it. If you're looking for them, you see the signs of it too. I see it in the growth of our kids program, the number of children that we have in this church now that we did not have a few years ago. I see it in the willingness of volunteers who do so much for this church, and not just for this church, in the whole community, who do so much. I see it in the tremendous faith and loyalty of so many people here. I see it in the willingness to spend thousands of dollars on new audiovisual equipment to enhance our worship. There are all kinds of ways that we can see this if we look for it. And I can see it in the other churches of our parish too. There are so many ways in which we can see God doing something special here. I've just mentioned a few. But we need to look for them in order to see them. Otherwise, we just take them for granted. And you know, there's one other way in which I see God doing something special here. And I see it in the number of people in our community who are not going to church anywhere. I see it in the number of kids in our community who are not going to Sunday school anywhere. And the reason I say I see it in those people, I can see God doing something special through those people. Because Jesus told us to go and make disciples of all nations. And too often we think of that meaning we should become missionaries and go halfway around the world. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a wonderful thing when people do that. But we don't have to do it that way. We can be missionaries right here in our own community. Those people who are not going to church anywhere, those kids who are not going to Sunday school anywhere, those are the people we've been praying for in our prayer emphasis. And if we keep praying, if we stay faithful to God, if we do our best and we trust God, God is going to answer our prayers. God has already started to answer our prayers. The answer may not come as quickly as we want it to. The answer may not come in the way we expected or hoped. But it will surely come. It already is coming. God is already answering our prayers. We just need to keep watch, keep looking for the answer, so that we'll see it as it starts to come. It's hard to wait. It was not easy for Habakkuk to wait. It's hard for us to wait too. And the worse things seem to be, the harder it is to wait. But when we stay faithful, when we do our best, and when we keep watch, we will see that God does answer our prayers, that God is still in control, and that God will respond. God will take care of everything when the time is right. When God does that, it's going to be awesome. Amen.